Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs. Once again, I'm Kier, and this is Jason. And today we are going to be reviewing two films. We're going to be reviewing Relic and Palm Springs. Again, both of them are online streaming. Relic can be found. Was it Amazon? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. It's not an Amazon movie. I mean, you'd have to wherever you're watching.
Yeah, wherever. I'm saying, yeah, there's not an Amazon original or nothing like that, but you're gonna have to stream it at some point, and I don't believe that one was free either. So
No, it wasn't. You'd have to rent it from Vudu or Fandango or whatever you want to do.
exactly. And then Palm Springs was also Amazon.
That's a Hulu movie.
Hulu. Oh, that's right, Hulu. Yeah. Awesome. So we'll be reviewing those two films. I don't remember where they were at, man. I watch a lot of movies, man. I'm watching, and there's all these different streaming sites, so it gets confusing. It gets confusing. So, but in any event, you're probably gonna have to pay for both of them if you want to watch them. But before we get into the movies, how's everything going with you today?
Good. I just got home from work. Had to go to the office today. Nobody there hardly. But it's just pretty much a regular day in these bizarre times we're living in.
Yeah, same. I'm working from home again for temporary for the time being. So yeah, same old. Just kind of work from home and don't know what's happening, but we'll find out. When they tell us.
The new normal.
Yeah. So the new normal, working from home and wearing masks wherever you go. So yeah. So
pretty much.
So that's
50 times a day and all that stuff.
That's life, man. It's like that, and that's the way it is.
Yep.
Cool. Well, with that said, let's get into it, man. We'll start with the first film, which is going to be Relic, and I'm going to have you take that one, if you will, please, sir.
Okay. Relic is a new horror film. I've been following this one along for a little while. Before all the COVID-19 nightmare, it had been playing at various film festivals, and it had always gotten good notices, so I was already pretty pumped to see this. It's a movie about a woman played by Emily Mortimer who finds out that she has an elderly mother who kind of lives in the middle of nowhere, and finds out that from her mother's neighbor that he hasn't seen her in a while. So of course, her mother's very elderly, so she's worried and goes there with her daughter, and her mother's not there. So obviously that already has them pretty worried because the mother has just disappeared. The mother already has slight dementia, so they're worried she just kind of wandered off. And then she mysteriously reappears after a few days with no memory of where she was. And then at the same time, all of these strange kind of creepy occurrences are going on around the house. They're hearing thumping noises. You get to see kind of strange shapes out of the corner of your eye. So it's kind of one of those movies like, what's really going on here? And to really go into much more detail than that would be kind of spoiler territory. But I'll just put it this way. It doesn't really have a happy ending, or maybe it does. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. But I like this movie. I wouldn't say it's a perfect film, but I definitely liked it. It reminded me a lot of Hereditary because it's the same kind of three generations of a family kind of dealing with some kind of supernatural trauma, possible possession. Again, not going to spoil anything, but it kind of reminded me of that from the outset. But I'm a huge fan of Hereditary, so I didn't think this movie quite had Hereditary's depth or the kind of originality that movie had. Because the Hereditary goes way out in the stratosphere. It's pretty weird, which I like. I like weird. This one kept it pretty normal, but it definitely is creepy. It definitely has really good performances, especially Emily Mortimer. And Robin Nevin as the mother. It's got some pretty suspenseful scenes, pretty scary scenes. The conclusion, again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending, at first I was disappointed a little bit because it wasn't what I was expecting. And the more I thought of it, the more the ending seemed very appropriate for the kind of movie that it's trying to be. So in general, I liked it quite a bit. How about you?
Yeah. I definitely like it as much as you did. I don't think. I found the pacing to be very, very slow. I felt like nothing for me really was scary. It was, I mean, it was your typical horror movie where it's just like a couple things are happening here and there that are, oh, what's going on there? What's going on there? And then I don't know, by the time we got to the actual conclusion, I just kind of felt like that's it. You know what I mean? So I really wasn't that impressed with the ending or the overall flow of the film pretty much. It was very simple, kind of basic in my opinion. And I didn't find it to be particularly scary. I mean, outside of a couple scenes, maybe at the very, very, towards the very end, inside the house, not going into spoilers, but there wasn't anything that really was terrifying or scary to me. And probably not one that I would personally revisit. So, yeah, my general take. So, it was okay, but nothing. I mean, nothing. You're not going to have nightmares from this film. You're not going to be super terrified from this film. If you're looking for a really good horror movie, I don't know if this one would hold up to most of the horror movies. I wasn't even that huge of a fan of Hereditary, but I would agree that Hereditary is a better film than this one is. At least there was some really scary and graphic imagery at the very least. But this one didn't even really have that. So not one I would revisit personally.
Yeah. Really, I see what you're saying. It's not one that I'm gonna fight you over or anything like that. But I did like it. But it's kind of interesting that, and it's not a spoiler to say that it's really almost more of a movie about having a family member with dementia. Really, that's the scariest part of the movie, because that's without spoiling anything, that's kind of tied in with what's really happening. It kind of reminded me also of, now that I'm remembering, of the Babadook, or however you say that, where in both of those movies, the monster is basically a metaphor for something else. And this is definitely a movie that's really about the fear of losing a family member to dementia. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, it's not as satisfying as some other movies that I've seen lately. So yeah,
I'll agree with that. I don't know, like I said, it's just not one that I would revisit personally. So if someone were to ask me, would you recommend it, I don't know if I could necessarily. Because like I said, the pacing's really slow, and I know you don't care you care more about that than I do. If it's a really slow pacing, it better have a really, really great payoff. And the payoff to me just wasn't that great. So, I mean, I can sit through a movie for an hour where just weird occurrences are happening. I mean, that's kind of typical. There's noises, there's weird noises, there's weird sounds, weird things are going on. You're hoping to find out, because it's, that's how a lot of those movies are. You don't even know what you're looking for, what's going to happen, or what the fear is until the very end of those types of movies. Similar to Hereditary or some of those other films where you just know something's up, but you don't know exactly what it is. And then in this case, when I found out what it was, I just wasn't that interested. I was just like, okay, that's it. All right, cool. And I went on and just continued living my life. So, just my overall take.
I didn't. You know me. I like the slow burn movies, and I definitely was not bored at all. It was only 90 minutes. I thought it had a pretty good pace for me. So, and I don't love every slow burn. Some burns are too slow even for me, but this one definitely didn't. It had my attention. So.
I wouldn't say I was necessarily bored. I would just say that I wasn't like overly engaged with everything that was going on. So I guess it's kind of a fine line between saying you were bored and waiting for it to end, or waiting for something to happen, versus just saying the pacing was so slow that and it wasn't that scary to me. So it was just kind of like, I was waiting for something more to happen, but I wasn't like bored with whatever was going on. I just was trying to figure out what was going on. And once I figured out what was going on, or really, I never really actually figured out what was going on because of the way it ends. But once I figured out what was going on, I just wasn't that impressed personally. So,
all right,
cool. Yeah. So, all right, you seem like you liked it. I maybe didn't like it as much. So, all I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. So not one I will revisit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to Palm Springs. Take that one. Palm Springs stars Andy Samberg, J.K. Simmons, and Kristen Milioti. Is that right? Milioti?
No.
Yeah.
Milioti?
Milioti? I don't know.
know.
The girl that's right there on the screen. That's her. It's basically kind of like a modern day Groundhog's Day, if you will. It's basically Andy Samberg's character, and you don't find this out initially, but he's basically been living the same day, a day of a wedding of his girlfriend's friend's wedding. Basically, he's been reliving that day for I don't know how long, but it seems like for a really long time. He's basically been reliving that same day. So every day, doesn't matter what he does, if he drives home, if he goes to a different place, if he does something different, if he dies, whatever case may be, similar to Groundhog's Day, basically. He always wakes up at the same bed, and wakes up, at the hotel that he's staying at in Palm Springs, and it's always the day of that wedding, basically. What's interesting about this one, as opposed to Groundhog's Day, and this isn't really a spoiler, I don't think, is that he can bring other people into his basically nightmare that he's living, but based on actions that they do, other people can actually join him in his nightmare. One of them being the female lead in the film, as well as J.K. Simmons' character as well. They both are basically kind of brought into his reliving the everyday with him. So they eventually end up reliving every day with him. And as you can imagine, they're initially not very happy about it. So it's a comedy. You find out a lot about all three of the characters, because they're reliving the same day. And there are some like twists and turns that happen, with all three of the characters. You find out other events that you didn't, because you keep seeing them wake up every day. But I feel like every day that they wake up, you find out a little bit more about, what's going on with them in their lives and that kind of stuff, without getting into spoilers. And that's pretty much kind of the basic gist of the film. It's, it's really kind of hard to describe a film that, basically wakes up and every day it's the same day, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the basic gist of it. Yeah. And, they do a lot of some similar things that, they did in like Groundhog's Day, where, they try to get themselves killed. They try to do things. They, you know what I mean? They try to get away. They try to run away. They try to do something different, trying to figure out how they can, get past that day that they've all been reliving for probably years, is what I'm assuming. So, and that's kind of basically the gist of the film. Overall, I mean, I liked it. I didn't think it was as good as Groundhog's Day or anything like that, in my opinion. It just, but it did add a little bit of freshness to it. There were some different elements that maybe, rewatching Groundhog's Day necessarily didn't have. I did like the element that there were other people that were involved in it, and they were not too happy with Andy Samberg's character because he brought them into it. So I thought that was kind of fun. But overall, I thought it was a decent film. I laughed enough. It wasn't anything that, I would buy or own or anything like that. But overall, I didn't think it was a bad film. I enjoyed it overall. And it's another film that wasn't very long. I think it was also like maybe a 90-minute running time or something of that nature. I don't remember exactly how long it was. But really, for a film like that, that's kind of all you really need. But overall, not a bad film. Your take, Jason?
Oh, I loved this movie. This is easily one of my favorite movies of the year, for sure. I thought it was really funny. Well, first of all, in general, I like movies that have something to do with time travel, time loops. In this case, I'm a big fan of Groundhog Day. I'm a big fan of Happy Death Day. And there aren't really that many of those movies that have the time loop structure. So already I was pretty sure I was going to like it, but it surprised me a lot. Like, for one thing, I really like the way that you come in when it's already happening. Usually the person that it's happening to is your focal point for the movie, and you're there for the first time it happens all the way to the end. Where this case, you kind of come into the story when he's already been doing this and you don't really even know for a while, because you enter it kind of the lady's perspective. So I thought that was a neat twist. The twist of bringing people in was, I thought, really cool. So it definitely owes a debt to Groundhog Day for sure. But it did a lot of things to kind of make it its own too. And I thought the performers were really great. I'm a big Andy Samberg fan. I've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine since the beginning. I love Popstar, Hot Rod, all that kind of stuff. The lead actress was really good. I didn't recognize her, but she's in the second season of Fargo, which is one of my favorite things in the world. J.K. Simmons, I like in pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really funny. I thought it was really emotionally involving. Like I like the ups and downs of the romantic subplot, and I didn't really know how it was going to end. I didn't really. Toward the end, I thought it was going to go one way. Like I was pretty sure it was going to go one way, and it didn't. So it was pretty unpredictable, even within the confines of the structure of the plot. And I don't know. It's just a really enjoyable movie that I'll definitely be checking out again sometime soon. I'm pretty sure. And I don't think it will probably come out on DVD or Blu-ray because it's a Hulu original. Yeah. But if it did,
I feel like that's kind of the crappy part about, yeah. And we've had these other discussions. I know you like to pretty much own every single film that you moderately like. But I feel like in today's age, I don't really have to own all the films now. You know what I mean? I'm not quite to where it was with like CDs where I still got to buy I don't buy any CDs anymore. I gave up on that years ago. Yeah, but to me, I feel like most films, unless it's really rare or obscure, you can find almost on any streaming service. You know what I mean? And so I don't feel like I need to own film. So this one, like I said, I wouldn't buy it necessarily, but I also don't have to. So and for me, as far as like buying films, I typically only will buy maybe a handful of films that I really, really loved a year. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be my favorite film of that year. Well, probably my favorite film, but it doesn't have to be in my top 10 of that year just because they're so easily accessible now. You know what I mean? So it's got to be a film that I'm really going to watch a lot of times or whatever case may be to even buy it. But I would rewatch this one. Like I said, I wouldn't buy it probably, but I would rewatch if I was bored or something like that. So.
That sounds like a backhanded compliment.
No, that's a pretty good compliment for me, actually.
I know. I think anybody watching this show, for just even a few times, will get the kind of the dynamic between you and me. It's like you pretty much like everything less than I do. That's how all these reviews are. Right. I thought it was all right. And then me going, oh, I love this movie.
Well, the only caveat is an action film. I tend to like the action films more than you do. I liked Extraction more than you did, and I liked The Old Guard more than you did. So there are a few that I liked more than you did. And they also had, The Old Guard, I don't know what Extraction, but I know The Old Guard had better reviews of some of the other films that you absolutely loved. You know what I mean? So, including Eurovision. No. I mean, for the most part, I would say that I'm a little bit more of a stingy grader and overall critic for the most part.
You said it. I didn't.
Yeah. And for me, I don't know, unless it's
stingy over here.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's if it's a really, really well done action film or really well done drama, I don't tend to give too many films like 5 stars or whatever case may be. I just don't, and for me, I feel like a 3 out of 5 is usually probably the grade. 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. That's usually kind of the grade that I gravitate towards for most films that I generally just liked. So, whereas if you generally liked it, it's 5 stars all the way. If I could give it 6 stars, I would have done that as well.
Hey, not necessarily.
All right. Well, with that said, speaking of grades and that sort of stuff, let's start with Relic. Overall grade you would give it, and the face you would give it, I guess.
I gave it a 4 out of 5, which is a B+, which means I had a good time. It wasn't perfect, but it was a good, solid, very atmospheric, very well acted, creepy horror movie. It didn't quite land with as much of a great ending as I wanted, but I get why they did it. So I give it a space, which is a nice solid smile with teeth.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get to show my teeth very often. I'm gonna probably I think I'm gonna go with a 2.5 on this one for me. There's some good stuff there. Overall, I didn't love it. Overall, it's not something that I personally would revisit. There's other films that, like we've already kind of mentioned, that it remind me of, that some of those I would rather watch over this one, even if I didn't necessarily love those. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna give it a 2.5, and I'm gonna give it this face, which is pretty much just a straight face. So for that one, so not one I would revisit. Man, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it per se, unless I think that you're like a horror geek like Jason. So
yeah, if you're a horror movie fan, I would say definitely check it out. If you're like a casual, every once in a while horror movie fan, probably not.
But even then, I would have a caveat. If you're a horror movie fan, because I know horror movie fans, but they like to be like scared. I don't know that this one's very scary. It wasn't for me, anyways. If you like the jump scares and that kind of stuff, I don't think there's a whole lot of jump scares in that capacity in this film. So I don't know. I mean, there's a couple, but so I don't know.
What I really liked, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a scene where a character, I guess for lack of a better way of saying it, gets lost within the house, in a way of saying it.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite scene.
Really, like, what is going on here?
Yeah, that was kind of probably my favorite scene of the movie. And that scene made no sense once I finished the movie. I was like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like, it kind of seemed like it was a scene that was thrown in there that really didn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It was really, really, that was kind of a scary scene, and it was a little terrifying, to be like trapped in kind of like your own house. You know what I mean? But then, like, after it was over, I was like, I don't even understand what that scene was about. You know what I mean? So I kind of downweighted that scene only because of the fact that it didn't really lead to anything. I don't know. It's still a little strange, I guess. So,
Kier, making sense is overrated.
That's right. That's right, man. Making sense is overrated.
It's an emotional art form. It's an emotional art form.
That's right. You can do whatever you want to do, man, and it doesn't have to make sense.
Right. I am a David Lynch fan, after all.
Yes. And then moving on to Palm Springs, overall grade you would give that. That's probably a 5 out of 5 for you, but overall grade you would give that, and the face you would give it.
Close. It's the kind of movie that maybe next time it'll be a 5 out of 5, but this time it was a 4.5 out of 5. I loved it. I had no issues with it at all that I can remember. It hit every mark that I'm looking for in a movie, pretty much. Creative, funny, unpredictable. Really good. I give it 4.5 out of 5, which is this face. My big cheese nut smile.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5, I think, which is pretty good. Yeah, I know. Which is pretty good for me. That
I know.
That's as good as it gets, baby. No, I'm gonna give it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. I was leaning towards a 3, but I think I will give it a 3.5 out of 5 because there was a lot of funny scenes. There's a lot of parts that I did like in there. So I'm gonna go with 3.5 out of 5. And it was unpredictable. I give it that. I didn't know what was gonna happen, and I do like that aspect of it. So I'm gonna give 3.5 out of 5, and I'm gonna give it this face, which is a smile with some teeth, pearly whites, baby.
All right.
Yeah. We don't get to do that very often. Not ecstatic, because that face never happens. But smile with some teeth. That's as good as it gets for me, man. So
yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well, yeah. Well, that was fun. Well, that's pretty much it. that's the movie reviews. As always, if you like the channel, we ask that you please like and subscribe. Always leave a comment, and then always hit that bell notification so you get uploaded for any of our new shows that we'll be posting. And as always, we try to upload about 2 to 3 times a week. always be looking out for whenever we're going to post a new video, and we will talk to you guys all again real soon. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.